Welcome to the InnerVerse. It's an illusion.
Welcome to the One Within All to the InnerVerse. I'm your host, Chance, here with another podcast to help encourage you to bloom where you're planted this Taurus season. I'm sure you're all as grateful as I am to witness spring in full swing, complete with the sights and smells of the colorfully efflorescent and multifaceted forms of life bursting from the earth. But aside from being as pretty as a painting, what does it mean that nature's design includes such a variety of petals and posies to represent this time of rich flourishing with such fantastic floral fecundity? As a student of philosophy, I think that the most expedient argument to demonstrate the existence of a divine designer is our innate aesthetic awareness and objective perception of beauty. And from the herbalist's studious conclusions, the doctrine of signatures informs us that how a plant looks, smells, and grows are crucial components of comprehending their virtues, but it also matters when they grow, bloom, and go through various stages of transformation. Since we can observe that beauty, harmony, intelligence, and health all go hand in hand, it's ultimately logical to conclude that flowers, the eternal symbol of beauty, are much more medicinally powerful than the allopathic establishment and pharmacopoeia pushers would have you believe. The mainstream and upside-down view of drugs as the end-all be-all for wellness would have us believe that the magic is to be found in the boiled-down and chemically isolated active ingredients in plants, but the alchemists know that the remedy exists in the essence of the thing itself, and that essence is inseparable from its aesthetic beauty, or what you might simply call the vibe of the thing. Our guest today is hip to all this alchemical business and more, and she's here to share her wide array of syntropic solutions to alleviate the aches and pains of our era of stress and static stagnation. Her name is Katie Hess, and she's the founder and face of LotusWei, a purveyor of fine floral infusions. She's the author of Flower Evolution, a guidebook to the miraculous world of flowers and their limitless virtues, host of the Flower Lounge podcast, and longtime guide to holistic health in her one-on-one work with clients. Katie's traveled through all corners of the world in search of rare and powerful flower pals, transmitting their life force, lifting potential into accessible elixirs. And at this point, she's gathered over 150 different recipes in her alchemical cookbook, bringing clarity, focus, improved sleep, rapid personal growth, and consciousness-expanding benefits to people all around the world. Having tried her Radiant Energy Flower Elixir myself, thanks to a kind listener named Stacy sending me a bottle, I can say with confidence that her creations are crazy effective. And I can't wait to learn more about her work, her products, and perspectives on the world and life. You can find LotusWei linked in the show notes, or you can just type into your browser LotusWei.com and toss in a /InnerVerse to browse with my brand new affiliate link activated and support your favorite podcast while you flower power yourself to the max. So let's get into it. Welcome, everyone. The pioneer of petal potentiation and floral renaissance ringleader, Katie Hess of LotusWei. Thank you for being here, Katie. It's awesome to finally be speaking.
Oh my God, Chance, that is the best introduction I've ever heard. Wow.
I'm doing my job then.
You
got to get you gassed up and ready to go. But that's my introduction. But I'm just meeting you. How would you like to describe yourself and the work you do?
Yeah, I mean, I love that we have something that is yummy and delicious and like an amazing experience for people that also, when used regularly, is absolutely life transformative. It's like that part of the love affair never gets old for me. I've been doing this 20 some years. And we were just talking about it at lunch today, actually. It's like never, it's just like never gets old, because every story you hear is like, oh my God, it's like still amazing. It's still surprising. It's still beautiful. And it's like time, it's like time for humanity to open more to this type of remedy and modality, because it's so supportive and it's so everywhere and it's so natural. And I think we need it now more than ever.
And you said you've been doing it for 20 years. How did you get started? Was there a personal transformative experience that set you on the path?
After I graduated college, I left the country. I did some volunteer work. And at a certain point, I started studying all forms of natural remedies, herbalism, essential oils, bee sting, acupuncture, like pretty much anything I could get my hands on. And I ended up meeting an expert in flower remedies who was from Spain. And he only taught in Spanish, and he only taught in Spain, Mexico, and Argentina. So I was really lucky for me to intersect with him at the time that I did. And he basically taught me two things that, put me on the right path. One was that every flower on the planet, every botanical, every tree, every living, growing thing in the plant world has a really specific emotional, mental, spiritual benefit, or energetic benefit, you could call it. That's cool, right? I mean, that in itself is like, wow. And then he also said that if we could get 3% of the world's population actively working with these remedies, it would create enough of a ripple effect that it would change the future of this planet. And I did not understand what he meant. I mean, I think, it was so inspiring that I was like, yes, and I'm going to bring the flower remedies back to the United States. And that was like 2001 when yoga wasn't cool. So it was a bumpy start. But I think, fast forward all these years, now I kind of understand better what he meant, after the last few years and seeing what does it mean when people are afraid? Like, what does it do to their systems? What does it mean when they're empowered? What does it mean when they trust themselves? Like looking at all these different dynamics, I can understand better the power of being fearless and the power of tapping into something natural to really help us actualize our full potential. It's pretty exciting.
I hear you. And I like the idea of like 3% adopting this modality would make a ripple effect that's beyond our ability to imagine, because I have witnessed several times, like just a 1%. I mean, I know it's abstract, right? But just a 1% increase in an individual's personal energy can have a cascading effect, because your energy potential is technically infinite. So 1% added to infinite, it gets wild. And that in the fractal, like the macrocosm, applying that to humanity at large, we could see in it. And it's so like, it's so ecologically sound. There's way more benefits beyond just the medicinal to cultivating the flowers. I mean, I started the introduction with the whole concept of beauty being the gateway to, or like the indicator of health and intelligence. And I mean, adding more flowers to the world never did anything bad. It always did something good,
Yeah, I mean, we see them pop up in our culture all the time during transitions. Maybe we don't really realize, but it's like, right, when someone gets sick, we get them flowers, or we want to show that we love somebody, we give them flowers, or someone dies, we offer flowers. It's like always in these really pivotal moments of our life. And there's no like coincidence to that, right? It's like they make their appearance in ways when our psyche needs them the most to help us adjust.
Yeah. And then there's this concept of the language of flowers, that if you give somebody a certain kind of flower, it is carrying a certain message. And I'm wondering if we're just scratching the surface of the true language of flowers, because you're talking about a minute ago how each one has a certain emotional spectrum signature that it works with. Can you talk about the language of the flowers itself?
Yeah, I mean, if you're talking about like, so you could talk about it in terms of like Victorian symbolism, for example, and you could probably see this among many cultures, right? Like in Asia, certain flowers mean things. In Africa and Europe, many different places, there's like a symbolism, like this flower means a symbol of love, for example. But what we're talking about here is something that is way more profound in terms of like, if you think of this beautiful paradise that we're living in, it's 4.5 billion years old. So there's a lot of wisdom there. It's this like living, breathing entity, right? It's not a rock flying through space. It's like an alive, if there's an aliveness, there's a wisdom to it. And each flower is like a certain like thread or flavor of wisdom that's coming through, or you can think of it as an antenna, right? Imagine yourself walking somewhere really beautiful, like through a forest, and and animals love flower essences too. Oh, there's a dog behind me. Can you hear her? She's making a lot of
dogs.
So, I mean, that's one of the reasons we know they're not placebo too. They work really well with animals and babies. But okay, so back to the forest. You're walking through the forest and there's all these beautiful trees and plants and flowers. They're like antenna of the earth's wisdom. They're transmitting information. And humans, in our innate wisdom, in our energy systems, we have the capacity, we have the understanding, we know how to, if you want to use technology terms, download information or upgrade our systems with the energy from the earth. And if the earth is a living entity that is constantly evolving and changing and transforming, as are we, then this concept of like upgrading our systems really makes sense, you know, because things are not the same as when you and I were 6 years old, right? Like there's new diseases and there's new mental psychoses and there's new themes and phenomenon and like new things that people are up to, right? Like, I mean, just even as simple as like, we didn't have fentanyl around when we were little kiddos, like, and that's sweeping through cities across America. So all these new things are popping up, and the earth in response offers us flowers and trees and plants as remedies to support us. So when you walk out into your backyard and you see something spring up in the wild, it is most certainly a gift for you and exactly what you would need. And what's even cooler is, even though you don't know, you do have the capacity to absorb that information just by spending time around the flower. Does that make sense?
It does. And it's like, to me, hilarious how there's so many people that say they have allergies. They're allergic to pollen or this or that. And that's their explanation for their symptoms. But they're also at the same time surrounded by the cure for that, dandelions popping up in their yard. And they are going to war with the dandelions, you know, bringing the lawn care company in, spraying the yard and all that. But when you think about, you said the earth is alive. It's not a dead rock flying through an endless void.
Right.
We can say a lot about that, but there's a way different cosmology that you can adopt, where instead of seeing each plant, each tree, each blade of grass as a separate entity, or even each human being, that instead you look at it like they're all branches off of the same tree. That really this whole thing is one organism, the world tree. You know, the earth is that, and the trees that grow, the flowers that bloom, those are all just the buds and branches off of this one single entity. And when you have that cosmology, it's not weird at all that the things that would be a remedy for one part of the tree's problem would grow where those people are that have that problem, and would be abundant in those places. And that makes the whole concept of like herbal medicine and foraging and wildcrafting a lot simpler, you know, just to look at what's in your environment and learn to work with it, you know, commune with it, play with it, just tune into it. And all that sounds really abstract, but it just begins with the intention to connect, I think. And then that will take you places.
Yeah, I love that you mentioned dandelion. That's one of my favorite remedies because like you said, there's so many people in our culture who are at war with the dandelions in their lawns, but you can eat the roots and the leaves and the flowers. And it's one of the most powerful blood cleansers. It would help us all lose weight. It would help clear up our skin. It would clean out our lymphatic system and our livers, right? It's like exactly what we need, and Mother Nature provides in abundance. And if you look at the flower essence of the dandelion, so not the like chemical constituents, but the actual energy imprint, life force of it, is for releasing neck and shoulder tension. And one of the things I find really interesting, did you ever, when you were a kid, hear the kids saying like, mama had a baby and her head popped off, and you would like flick the top of the dandelion off? Did you ever hear that?
It sounds familiar, probably.
And you wonder like, how on earth do the kids know that? Like that you are actually like popping off the tension that is stuck or stagnant within your neck and your shoulders. And who doesn't need that, right? Like who doesn't have tension in their neck and shoulders? Who's not overthinking and storing stress in their body? And here's the remedy all around us. And here we are with our weed killer.
Yeah, it's just very comical, but it's also encouraging to know that regardless how hard the upside down world tries to fight away the very thing that would bring it relief, nature is infinite. Nature just keeps on trucking. That whole environmental scam that we're killing the planet. Like, don't get me wrong. I think it's great to be ecologically minded and be wise with how we treat our environment, but as you said, it's way older than we can comprehend, and it's going to be here no matter what. It's going to keep life exists. Existence exists. There's no such thing as non-existence, right? Like the proof is that we're alive in that very concept. And so there's nothing to worry about. Just embrace the changes coming. But I want to talk about, and you can comment on all that, of course, but I want to talk about flower essences themselves, because that's kind of your thing. Yeah. And maybe you could give us an overview of what they are, how they work. It would be particularly interesting to me to know more about this Radiant Energy Elixir.
Yeah, sure.
Because, a listener sent me this, and it's like my go-to. I particularly like it when I'm getting into work with clients. I do biofield tuning. So I use tuning forks, help them alleviate stuck energy in their field. And ever since I received this and started using it before sessions, I feel like I'm just way more tapped in, and a higher percentage of the time I actually get the knowing of what the whole tuning is going to be about and what the core issue is immediately before we even start hitting forks. It's crazy. It's like the whole process gets put on fast forward, and there's probably, a lot to do with this really cool Radiant Energy Elixir. It's awesome.
Yeah, so it will help in terms of like stagnancy. It will look through all your meridian systems and find where there's stagnancy and move it through. It's like acupuncture without the needles. So it's looking at all the different roadmaps of the ways that the energy moves through your system and clarifying and harmonizing your energy. Radiant energy specifically is for like if you feel a little bit tired in the afternoon, or maybe your immune system is a little low, or maybe you're one of those people who's like so empathetic and so loving and kind and compassionate and caring that when you see somebody who's stressed, you just like pull in all that stress and try to eat it for them. So there's this element to radiant energy that's like, you can still be empathic and empathetic, but you also maintain your sense of integral energy signature without taking in, and that we can get to a point where we believe like they got it, they can handle it, I don't need to eat it for them. It also boosts your like presence. So if you're using it regularly, you might notice that when you walk into a room, people kind of like look at you because it starts giving you this kind of power energetically, so that people are like, whoa, who is that? It kind of hits people in a different way.
That's what flowers do. If flowers are in the space, you're immediately drawn to them.
That's true. Yeah, right. And part of it is like you said earlier, the beauty of it is just like so natural and arresting and gorgeous. And the other part is the vibrancy, right? So you can like pull that into your system so that you're the thing that people look at when they walk into a room. There is another really interesting flower in Radiant Energy called pomegranate. And it's cool because it can cleanse the reproductive system. So anybody that we've been sexually intimate with in the last 7 years, some people have, relationships that end, or partnerships that they actually don't want that information in their system. So, all the ancient masters would say when we're intimate with people, that information, good, bad, ugly, beautiful, stays with us for 7 years. So if you're working with something like pomegranate flower essence, it can shorten that time window down to a year if you're using it regularly. So it's really good, like cleansing of reproductive system for women. It is especially helpful because it gets rid of cramps and period irregularities. So like when women are like trying to have a baby or trying not to have a baby, or like pinpoint their ovulation times, right? This is a huge issue these days, like really just trying to have babies.
What about if a woman's pregnant? Is it okay to use in that context?
It's incredible to use in that context. It is like, so they've done studies that the baby in utero feels everything that mom feels. So whereas in pregnancy, you have to be careful about certain herbs you take, or certain, tinctures or essential oils that you use, with flower essences, because there aren't any chemical constituents and it is just an energy remedy, kind of like homeopathy. You can take them with reckless abandon. So pregnant women can take them all through their pregnancy, and imagine how much less stress they're experiencing. And therefore the baby then comes into this world with like 10 months less of stress, it's pretty awesome.
Well, again, I brought up biofield tuning, but one of the things that comes up in a lot of sessions with clients is just helping them understand the way that either the time they were in the womb, or the first year of their life, or the birth experience itself conditioned them in certain ways. And 90% of the time that conditioning is about what mom was experiencing at the time. And this isn't to make mothers or expectant mothers or future mothers overly worry about, their vibe maintenance when they're in that time, because it's never going to be easy. And the truth of life is like nobody gets away without some kind of adaptative conditioning, and that's okay. We work it out as we go. But if we could just make the process easier and make, mom feel better, or the process of getting pregnant easier, we need that in the world right now. We definitely need more children born in the world. We always do. It's our greatest resource.
Yeah, I actually have a lot of friends who do fertility work with, traditional Chinese medicine and IVF stuff. And what they're finding now, just in the last couple of years, are that the IVF clinics are like way backed up. Like it is now more popular than ever. There's like a 6-month wait list that there never used to be. So there's something going on with women's reproductive systems. And like you said, it's more important than ever to care for that part of our culture and our humanity.
Absolutely. And now back to this flower essence stuff. You're saying that it's like homeopathy. So there's not actually like an active chemical component to this elixir I've been taking. It's more just literally the life force essence. Can you talk more about that? Like maybe how they're made, or the philosophy there?
Yeah, so if you think about it in terms of how it was used historically, it's been around for thousands of years in every culture you could imagine. You can see it in Africa, in Australia, Himalayas, Europe, South Central America, in a variety of different rituals. And the most common being drinking the dewdrops from the tops of flowers. So the original flower essence format is, doctors, alchemists, shaman, medicine men and women would say, okay, Chance, you're going to go out and find this one particular blue flower that grows on this hill, and every morning you're going to drink the dewdrops that are on top of that flower, right? Sometimes you see it in cultures like India and Central America, where they will choose specific flowers for you, soak them in water in the sunlight for a while, a couple hours, and then dump it over your head. So those are both forms of, the original flower essence. Nowadays, we just have figured out a way to scale dew, essentially, and get it into a bottle, because I live in Phoenix. We don't even have dew, really. It's too dry for dew. So you need a way that you can bring it into modern day life. So when you're talking in terms of there aren't any chemicals, it's because essentially you're really just harvesting the chi or the life force from that flower. The flower is what holds the most energy in a plant because it's the reproductive system. And that's why we typically make essences from flowers. You know, if it's something like bamboo, we might use a shoot or something, but typically it's a flower. And the sunlight is the catalyst or the driver that drives the life force into water. Water is an interesting topic. You might have studied water. And there's like so many pieces of information that can be stored in one cluster of water. It's like a recording device, right? It's like, you know, people hear that and it's like, what? That sounds kind of crazy. Water stores information. But I mean, like all these technologies, right? You look at the like rainbow backing on a DVD and it's like, how does it hold a movie on there? I don't know. Or like when I was a kid, we had cassette tapes. Like how does the magnetic tape hold like a whole album? I don't know, right? And I don't even know, like, we don't even know how our cell phones work, you know, like when I tell people all of the most important things in your entire life are in this box, right? It's like your secret notes, your texts, your poetry, your music, your playlists, the photos of your family, your loved ones, your videos, like everything is in this box. And all of that information travels on invisible waves throughout space. Like, honestly, how does that, like, nobody really knows how that technology works. And it just keeps upgrading and upgrading, and somehow it keeps evolving and getting stronger and more powerful, but nobody really knows how it works, but we know it works. So is that really that far-fetched to think that Mother Nature has had that technology all along and that you can store that information or healing essence in water? And then if you introduce that water, which is stabilized by alcohol. Alcohol is like a miracle, right? It stabilizes the life force. If you put it on or in your body, then it's like traveling at the speed of light because it's energy, right? Like in the UK, they've done studies showing that bees are not attracted to flowers based on color or scent, right? You always think they're like, wow, drawn to this like beautiful, yummy smell or color. It has nothing to do with that. They actually are feeling the very subtle electrical frequency that's being emitted from flowers, and they can feel it on the little hairs on their legs. And there's this dynamic communication occurring between the bees and the flowers. So essentially what we're doing is capturing that energy or subtle electrical frequency, and then introducing it into your body of meridian systems and points and, nadis and chakras and how your whole body of light is functioning. And the way that I think the way that makes it the most clear to me these days is think about when you die. So like, this is something that's going to happen to all of us, right? At some point, this beautiful, crazy flesh, temporary temple house body will get old and die. And then a part of us will leave that temporary house. That is what we're working on with flower essences. That 21 grams that escapes or leaves the body when we die is what we're actually working on with the flower essences. Does it have beneficial effects for your physical body? Absolutely. Because what controls the physical body or what kind of directs the physical body is those 21 grams of your consciousness that leaves, right? Like I have a friend who is a long time, multiple decade massage therapist. And she went to this course for like super geeky, nerdy massage therapists that want to like see what is underneath the skin that they're actually working with, right? They want to see the fascia and the muscles and like how it all works. And she had this moment where she was like, holy fuck, this guy is 95 years old and his like everything is like silk. He doesn't have one minuscule little tiny knot anywhere in his tissue. And she realized, oh, it's because it all left when his consciousness left the body. Like when the consciousness leaves, all of our patterns, emotional patterns, thought patterns, everything leaves with us, right? So the physical body really is just like a screen. It's like the wall. And what is actually projecting onto that screen is the 21 grams of our consciousness. So
I really love that example.
Yeah, that's what we're working with.
Yeah. And that energy is information too. So when you're talking about, man, I never really thought about that, but after the spirit leaves the body, of course, all of the muscular tension that's being held by the mental patterns would leave too, in a way. That's fascinating, because that's really what it is when it comes to like injury or dis-ease in the body. Your mind is limiting your expression of energy through beliefs that hold you in limitation, reduce your potential. And then your body reflects that and finds a way to like dam up the flow of energy in your body to be in correspondence with what you believe. And that's absolutely true. I witness that all the time when I work one-on-one with people. And what's interesting though, is like, even beyond the physical, there's something mystical about this information energy essence. I'm going to tell a funny story. So I have a good buddy. His name's Kyle Denton. He has a shop called Tippecanoe Herbs up in Milwaukee. You guys would love each other. You should talk sometime.
Okay.
I'll see if maybe he can get you on the same podcast. That'd be really fun. He's just a total geek for this stuff too, and an absolute wizard. And he once sent me this hydrosol. So it's essence in water, right? And it's a spray. And it was called Flow State. I don't have it on me, so I don't remember all the things that were in it, but it's to, facilitate the flow state. And I'd been using it on myself, mostly like sprayed on my face at different times when I wanted to get in the zone. But the other night, me and my wife were playing Scrabble, as we do multiple times a week. We're huge Scrabble geeks. And my Jennifer, she just sprayed the Flow State hydrosol on the Scrabble bag of letters. Okay. On the bag of letters. And in that game, there's a thing in Scrabble called a bingo, where you play all 7 letters off of your tray in one turn, and you get a bonus 50 points. It's a big deal. It's hard to do. In that game, I got 3 bingos and she got 2 bingos. So like most people's Scrabble games, they see 1 or 0 of those happen. We've only done this experiment once, but she sprayed the Flow State on the bag, not even on us. And it was like the magic of the Flow State hit the bag. And then all of a sudden we're drawing just the perfect letter combinations to get huge words. So that, to me, I know that's not like a scientific in a laboratory experiment, but it made me laugh and it blew my mind. And it just shows that there's more than a physical component going on here. There's a level of synchronicity and orchestration with all components of the world at once working together, which is why I use that metaphor of the world tree, and that everything in the world is just a growth off of one tree and not separate at all.
Yeah, I think you would geek out about this. There's a longitudinal 10-year study done in Boston that I always quote because I just think it's fascinating. And it is, if your friend's friend's friend becomes wildly happy, it has more of a beneficial effect on you than if I put $5,000 cash in your pocket. So this is somebody that you don't even know. And if you become wildly happy, it has more of a beneficial effect on your friend's friend's friend than if someone put $5,000 cash in their pocket. And so, yeah, it's like that's where the world tree comes in. It's like these are people on a completely different branch that you've never even met. But imagine the power we have, right? Like I think a lot of resources goes into sort of maybe hiding or misleading us, down a path to think that we're disempowered, when actually we couldn't be further from the truth. Like we're so freaking powerful as human beings that in this very moment, you, Chance, are impacting tons of people that you don't even personally know by your mood state. Like it's kind of actually like, oh geez, like I feel a sense of like greater responsibility at this point. If you really, really tap into that, like, whoa, I'm impacting all these people right now. Like you're that powerful, I think it's super inspiring. And if you can use something like flower essences or biotuning or tuning forks or whatever practices that people have, meditation, to harmonize our energy, like why wouldn't we do it? It's like always creating a ripple effect.
Yeah, it's absolutely true. And the only thing really, when you boil down reality that exists, is frequency, vibration, energy. So really all you have control over in your life is your vibe. but that controls everything. So that's all you need to worry about managing and let the other pieces fall into place. I'm wondering though, because I see this again with biofield tuning all the time, but can you think of like stories or just affirm that working with flower essences actually creates external world circumstantial shifts or opportunity changes or like, synchronicity magic? Is that beyond just the health benefits?
Oh my God, 500 million%. I mean, that's really what it's all about. We have our tagline is transform the world from the inside out. And it's on like a very meta level, right? Like the only way to really benefit the world is first by focusing on ourselves. And that is the ripple effect. But also it's about, like you said, when you can turn the volume down on certain patterns that have been holding you back or limiting you. This could be patterns from up to 6 to 8 generations back in your family lineage. And again, this isn't to blame. You chose where you wanted to be born into, right? Like we choose. So we're taking responsibility for it. And yet like there's still all of this baggage that comes from our family lineage. And then every experience we've had from womb until now, if you believe in past lives, you're carrying that around as well. So there is a significant amount of momentum based on experiences that we've had, right? So let's say something happens in a room full of 50 people, there might be 50 different interpretations of what that is based on people's filters, because nobody is seeing reality as it is. No one is seeing absolute reality, right? We're seeing through all these different filters of experience and what we think things mean and how we interpret them. So the mind-blowing thing about flower essences is that it turns the volume down on the things that are self-limiting and turns the volume up on what is your true nature. What is the most pure, pristine, loving, kind, generous, wild, creative, beautiful part of you. And when that happens inside of you, the world outside of you is reflected back to you in a completely different way. So remember how we said like the body is like the screen and all the energy systems in and around our body is like the projector. Well, then there's that level of your energy is also the projector and the screen is this like quote unquote external reality that we see as separate from ourselves. And we sort of view it from over here. Like, oh, this person talked to me like this, or this opportunity came to me like this, or somebody showed up at the bus stop like this, right? Is in direct correlation and reflection with what is happening and emanating from our inner world. So as we change within, the whole way that quote unquote reality is reflected back to us or that we perceive reality changes. And, to put it in common language, after like 3 to 4 months of regular use, people's relationships change, their work situation changes, they get a promotion, they quit, they take a different opportunity, they move states, they try something new they've never tried before, they excel at something they never expected, they speak to a group of 1,000 people and they would have never done that before. Like all these things can be like liberated and freed because the obstacles are removed and it's actually coming from their true nature. And then reality around sort of like adjusts and reflects those opportunities back to us.
Absolutely. That's why I call the show InnerVerse. Actually, I didn't know that's why I called it that. I just thought it sounded cool years ago, but along the way, the name made itself very, evident why it was selected. I love that. Yeah. And I'm just amazed how different paths that we take, like your path, my path, other people I've talked to on the show, constantly confirm that one truth, the core truth, that transforming the world from the inside out is possible. That managing your vibe or just keeping yourself in the most coherent, positive, radiant state possible, just keeping your energy level high, doing what you got to do to discharge the bad charge, getting grounded and all that, how that changes how the whole world responds to you, what comes your way. It's amazing. Got to get barefoot onto the earth every day, even when it's snowing. And maybe you don't see the immediate ramification of that, but you keep up the routine and things will really snowball. It's a snowball effect. So with all that, how's the routine look for somebody utilizing flower essences from your shop? Like, what's that look like?
That's such a cool question, and it's changed a lot. When I first started working with people 20 some years ago, it was like I'd make a little bottle for them and they would take that, I don't know, like 3 to 5 times a day, and that was enough. Energetically, at that point in time, that was enough. Today, what I find is that most people are pretty much getting it in as many times as they can per day. It's like if you're taking it in the internal format, for me, it's in every cup of coffee, tea, water bottle, anything I'm drinking, right? It's like anything I'm ingesting in my body is getting the flower essences. And then I'll have like mists, which can just be applied externally, or anointing oils, which are added to your skin, just like sitting around in different locations around my office, around my house, so that when I visually see them, I remember to incorporate them and weave them in. What I find so fascinating is how that's changed, and it's like, I don't really know. Is it EMFs? Is it, that there's just a lot more like static energy in the field around us? Is it that we just need that much more support because our lives are full of, toxic stuff? Or is it that as humanity, we have like evolved to this point where we can handle more intensity? Like it could be a variety of factors, but it's interesting to me just to note that it seems that today we can benefit from as much regular use as possible to sort of keep realigning us with ease and, opening up the doors to our actual full potential.
Yeah, I started small using it a couple of times, but now I'm using this radiant energy all the time. And the cool thing about it being like the essence style of medicine is that I can't even tell that I've made a dent in this bottle. So in terms of being an affordable option,
yeah,
it'll last you quite a long time, even if you're using it really regularly. It's it's not the same as your month prescription of some kind of pill that also has all these side effects. That's the other big thing is like, you talked about the increase in like EMF or the static in the world. That's a real thing. My understanding of how we work in that soup of dissonance is that we have life force energy, right? We have a field that is that life force energy in flow. And the more dissonance there is in our environment, say a refrigerator that's running and making an odd sound that we have to filter out, the bad smell in the urban environment we live in, or, it could go on and on. But there's more and more things in the world that require us to just filter it out of our awareness to exist and to operate. The more things we're filtering out, each of those things represents a chunk of our consciousness, which is our awareness that we're having to turn off. And we have so much potential that we can do a lot of that. We can filter a lot of stuff out and be okay. But each one is like a drain on our battery. And the more of those things that are in our environment simultaneously, the bigger the drain on the battery is. So I think that might be why there's more of a benefit to regular use of stuff like this, because it is like you're adding droplets of pure light and consciousness into your field. You're like recharging your battery without going to sleep. Normally we do that through sleep and through food, but this is like a way to just keep kind of topping off without having to do the normal ways of going about it.
Yeah, that's interesting. If you think about it in terms of technology and battery, like you're saying, let's say like your phone or your computer or something, you have, there's like the bare minimum recharge, right? Like I got to recharge. And then there's also
when the battery is low is when it starts functioning weird.
Right, exactly. And then, so there's that level of just like maintenance. And then there's also the like upgrades and improves, right? So I think, there's a certain level that, like you said, people are taking them just to keep their kind of fundamental stability and balance. And then if you take them more beyond that, you really start more of an exploration process, like an inner exploration, because I find flower essences to be one of the most gentle ways to point out things that are in our blind spots. It's like partly there's the work, like the self-help work we need to do on ourselves. Like we can pretty, easily recognize like, oh, that's where I get tripped up, or this is the thing that, sends me down a spiral of negative thoughts or whatever. But then there are these things that we don't even see about ourselves, that are like blind spots when we're driving a car. We just like don't see them. And flower essences have this uncanny ability to very gently and sweetly just sort of like point something out to us, where we're like, oh, damn, I'm like behaving in this way. I've never seen that before. Wow. And then we have like a chance to shift it, or it can take something that is like a very small part of us and blow it up out of proportion. So we can see like, what does the full manifestation of that look like if we don't curb it, right? Like if it's a negative habit, and then how can we like fully dissolve that out of our system so that as we get older, we don't turn into these like crusty, crunchy elderly folks that we become, like softer, wiser, more open and generous as humans.
I love it. I wanted to ask you about some of the other elixirs on here, having only tried the one. I see all kinds of great titles for some of these medicines, like Truth Teller, for example. And I'm wondering, is this something like, do you get reported or have you experienced, effects where that particular elixir helps somebody in communication? Because I'm looking at that because that's my job. Is it like, do they really have distinct effects one from the other? It's not just like an overall boost.
100%. Yeah. If you take Truth Teller regularly, within a couple of days, something will pop out of your mouth and you're like, in your mind, you'll have this little conversation. Holy shit, I can't believe I just said that. And you're looking around the room and everybody seems to be fine. Everything's fine. Oh, I guess everything's fine. Right? It not only helps you alchemize anger so you can actually like express from a position of advocacy, but it also helps you really smoothly communicate, not be so afraid to hurt people's feelings, not have to beat around the bush so much and be PC and just like directly, neutrally, just like land it out of your mouth. And it's super powerful and palpable.
Beautiful. Cool. And that makes sense to me. And I think there's a lot of things that go on with the throat chakra. It's not just whether or not you're able to speak your truth or get the words out. There's in the biofield anatomy, there's a front and there's a back, there's a right, there's a left. And each of these areas of an energy center have a specific type of power that can be limited or, thrown off. And so for some people, it's not that they have any trouble saying the truth, maybe even a little bluntly, but they have an energetic posture that invites other people to interrupt them or to disregard what they say. And so the frustration for some people in the throat chakra isn't that they feel unable to speak or unable to say the thing. It's that it doesn't land, and so they don't, but a lot of people don't realize that there's this other component to it. That's not just about being able to speak the truth or communicate, but about the energetic posture for it to be received. And this all happens on like a body language level, on an unconscious level, especially with people that are operating more unconscious that you might be around. And my metaphor is that you may be wearing a sign, kind of like a kick me sign on your back that says, don't listen to anything I say. It's an invisible sign, but everyone's reading it and operating on that. And, if you feel frustrated in that way, maybe the Truth Teller elixir can help you get over that. Because I really like how you described it. That to me hits like, it's not just about being able to say the thing, but that it is received and everything's fine. That's where it's at.
There's actually 3 different speech remedies, just in case you're interested, since we're on this topic. First, I want to say something really interesting about the Truth Teller that I think you'll find fascinating. In the last 6 months or so, we've had multiple practitioners that we work with around the world say that they have clients who are autistic children who are nonverbal. Within 1 month of using that particular remedy, the Truth Teller, the kiddos start to speak, which is like mind-blowing. Like at this level, I don't understand how it's working that well. Like I welcome it. Like bring it on. I just don't even really know how to explain why that's happening. There's another one called Sacred Awareness. I used that in the beginning of this before we jumped on, because it's it's like trying to have more electric speech and say things in a more intuitive way, because I want to reach your listeners. Like I want to reach the listeners of Chance, right? Not just like how I want to say it. So it's like trying to help me grab the right words so that your listeners will really be receptive and feel a resonance with it. And then there's another one called Divine Truth, which is about being more okay with conflict. Like if your sense of truth and purpose is right here and you're like, kind of, why are we doing it this way? Like feel almost like a conflict. How can you become closer to people and more intimate with people, even though you're like perceiving your truth as a conflict? So like you said, there's so many different like nuances around speaking and communication and what truth means and what speaking involves. It's really fascinating.
That's really cool about the nonverbal children starting to speak. Wow. Like, I mean, yeah, totally. It just makes me want to cry. It's like, can you imagine the mother that comes home and is like, all of a sudden her child is speaking? It's like, what the heck? Like what got liberated there? It's miraculous. One of the things I've heard anecdotally around autism reversal, which of course, the mainstream would tell you this is permanent. They're like this forever. Which is so like silly. Permanent, right? Yeah, like they're missing. Except your entire physical body is a holographic projection of your consciousness, and your consciousness is not separate from this infinite source. So technically, everything's reversible. We might even be growing back limbs, someday if we get ourselves coherent enough, or we would never even need to lose the limbs. But I've heard about autism. From, somebody I used to know that had an autistic child, that getting the gut biome in order actually was the biggest step in reversal of the symptoms of autism. And we know, or I think a lot of the audience is aware, that your gut bacteria is pleomorphic and can actually transform and shift into other expression of bacteria without even the need for stuff like physical products like probiotics, just by the consciousness shift. I've witnessed this in doing biofield tunings on people's sacral chakra, helping them digest frustration, resentment, or guilt or shame that was held up there, that was causing the digestive problems physically. And then their whole gut biome shifts. They can eat things that they used to be unable to eat. My point being, do you have any flower elixirs that have that sort of effect on one's biome in a gentle, like energetic way?
That's a really interesting question. I've never measured the biome to see how it changes, but we do have remedies that, for example, if you have a tendency to worry a lot, and then it goes to your digestive system and you get digestive issues because you're constantly on the churn down there, it will remove the habitual pattern of worry, which then in turn will improve your digestion. What you said is really interesting about digesting certain emotions, because flower essences, depending on the emotion, there are flowers for shame, there are flowers for humiliation, there are flowers for feeling like you're not supported, for feeling like you have too much on your list of things to do and you'll just never be able to take a bite out of it, right? Like kind of like any sort of pattern or thought or neurotic thing we could think about ourselves as being human, there's a flower for it.
I believe it. There's a lot of flowers out there. Well, my next question is about that digestion of stuck emotions, right? Right. And it doesn't just apply to things like guilt and shame and frustration and resentment and worry. It's the whole spectrum. What I think is most effective in terms of reconciling trauma is figuring out how the trauma affected your behavior or what you think about your own personality, who you think you are. So the epiphany is important to healing in a permanent sense. Some things can help us along the way, give us some relief. But what I want to know is, have you experienced, or do you get reports of epiphanies with the flower elixirs that, change the person psychologically in a permanent way?
Yes, 100%. So like, for example, we have this program called the Flower Revolution, which is like a subscription program. Every month we mail people out the newest flower elixir to their door. And like there's about 150 people of us who take that same flower elixir and then see what happens and circle back and have a meeting at the end and talk about what we experienced. Every single month, people are having insights. Every single month with the new flower, people are like, oh my God, I saw this new thing about myself, or I experienced this new thing, right? It's happening constantly. If you want to talk about, and that's on kind of like a very subtle, nuanced, everyday basis, right? That's like woven into their everyday life reflections. I could talk about like more kind of visceral trauma healing with an experience I had with this gentleman who was in the special forces, and he had been stabbed and shot multiple times and had a bomb blow up in between his legs, and memories of being underneath a burning car and couldn't get out from underneath it because he'd be shot. So there's like all of these memories trapped in his fascial system. He came in for a massage into our wellness center. And afterwards, the massage therapist said, I think you should check on him. I'm done. I did my work, but I think you should check on him. So I gave him some time and then went in, and then like, indeed, he was like in a fetal position, like shaking. And basically we went through every memory one by one. And the whole time I was misting him with flower essences. And after about an hour, every one of those memories, it was almost like, I don't want to say relive because that sounds a little bit extreme, but it's like, he was describing like, I feel the coldness of the blade going into my stomach, and it feels like a violation, So he went through and described the sensations of each experience, and we just sat with it. Like I held space for him and he held space for himself to experience it, feel it, and then the fascia released it with the help of the flower essences. Just like look at it, process it, let it go. And this is the type of guy who, if you were to ask him, Chance, like, do you have trauma or PTSD from your experiences abroad or whatever, he would have said like, no, my only trauma is like not getting back there to do something. Like my trauma is like sitting in a boring office doing a boring job back in the States, like he would never like necessarily admit it. But afterwards, I asked him, do you feel a difference on an everyday basis based on all of that stuff being liberated from your body? And he was like, oh yeah, definitely. And he never really, I think, was able to verbally articulate what and how that played out. But I guess you can imagine if you're carrying around experiences and body memories like that, it has to be, like you said, using up some of your CPUs or something, it's like using up your background data so that you can't really be in your full expression of you, because you're kind of constantly chewing through that in the background. So, in terms of trauma, I was like, holy buckets, if we can clear that many years of very deep visceral trauma within a couple hours, like, what can we do? And I've seen people with, sexual abuse. I've seen people with addiction issues, with, car accidents, like all different kinds of like jarring experiences to the body. And it's like not necessary to like do these really extreme psychedelic experiences where you go into a coma or where you shit your brains out. It's like you could do this gently, subtly, in a nuanced way with insights and awareness and awakening on an everyday basis, and share with the people that you love. This is all at our fingertips.
I know. I see it all the time. I collaborate with people in their process all the time doing that. And what I think is hard for people to accept, that are so attached to their fear or their pain or their identity as a victim, they might not want to, they might not call it that, right? But it's the excuse for not taking full responsibility, is that it's been done to me. What I think the hardest hurdle is actually how simple and how quickly the process you can level jump back to a state of wholeness. You never were not whole. That's the secret, like they say, return to nature. We got to get back to nature. You can't leave it. You're already here. It is what it is. You're alive. you're alive. So all the potential for wholeness is already there. It's just a mental framework, but we have so many more fun things to talk about. But as we're wrapping up the first hour, can you remind people what they, your website, other things that you have on offer? I know you have a book that I'd like to ask you some questions about, but yeah, please give plugs or closing thoughts for the first hour people.
There's a really fun quiz on our website, LotusWei.com. It's WEI.com. In the upper left-hand corner, or actually anywhere on there, you can find there's a quiz, and you just click on the flowers that you're most drawn to, and it will give you a reflection of what each flower is, and then a reading at the end of what the top priorities for you are. I think that's a pretty interesting process. Most people are pretty floored when they do that. And the cool thing about that quiz is it shows you that you actually know what you need. When you see it reflected back to you. If you do it, Chance, I'd be happy to give you like a reading. If you do like the Longtime Lover quiz, I can tell you what your flower picks mean, or you can just walk through it and see if it resonates. But it's awesome because you know what you need, right? And it gets reflected back to you in a way that's like, yeah, I did know what I needed.
Cool. Yeah, we'll talk about that on part 2. I actually did do the quiz you're talking about, and there's an instant like, that's the one. You can just feel it, what you're drawn to. Very cool. So everyone check out LotusWei.com.
And then if you're ever in the Phoenix area, or if you ever have any listeners in the Phoenix area, we have a wellness center called the Self-Rising Nature Center, where we actually offer services with flower essences, meditation classes, acupuncture, chiropractics, flower rituals, all kinds of cool stuff. So if people want like a more in-person tea ceremony and chocolate and a flower reading, you're welcome to come and visit us in Phoenix.
That is a tempting offer. If I'm ever in the area, I'm going to come and knocking.
Good.
Awesome. I've had a blast in the first part. Can't wait to go into part 2. Thanks for being here, Katie.
Thank you, Chance.
Yo, how's everybody doing? You guys feeling it? The flower essence coming through the screen and the earbuds or the speakers or whatever. I had such a fun time. Katie is awesome. And I kind of feel like behind the curve, we should have been friends a long time ago. I really appreciate getting these plant people on the show, because as someone that doesn't have a lot of personal experience creating plant medicine, but very much an interest in using it and sharing it with others, I feel like I'm turning a corner where the sponge effect of absorbing information from these geniuses the sponge is getting saturated. I'm getting it. I'm totally getting it. And this conversation was just absolutely phenomenal. If you didn't catch the second part, you really missed out on the heart of the matter, which is interesting. Things took a turn that I didn't expect. I wanted to comment too on, if you look behind me, I have a new bookshelf. This is not a fake background. It looks so good. It seems like it's fake. Like one of those green screen things. But I finally updated my whole studio vibe. I know I've missed a couple vibrants because of life things going on. We will be returning in full force on Wednesday. It'll also be a plant show, which is cool. And Wednesday of this week, what day is that? The 22nd. And then after that, there will be another week off of Vibrant. So I'm taking, it's spring break, having some out of town family coming to visit. That being said, there's a lot to be excited about with this conversation with Katie. And I'm really happy I got this new affiliate link to LotusWei. Thanks again to Stacy, who sent me the flower essence Radiant Energy bottle that I've been, you know what? I'm going to take a drop right now. Here's how easy it is, right? Oh yeah. Tastes great. I think there's honey in there. I don't know. Like there's so many essences in this one plant. You got grape, pomegranate, orange, clover, jade succulent. Didn't expect that. Yarrow, lotus, and black tourmaline gem essence. That's one thing I didn't even get to ask her about. Like if you're creating these infusions and essences, can you add, throw some crystals in the mix? Of course you could. That seems like an obvious yes. But still, check out lotuswei.com/InnerVerse. Brand new affiliate link. One that I'm very happy to be able to share and not at all feeling like a shill. Actually feeling like a superhero to be connected to such powerful, awesome medicine. Fascinating conversation. Now, if you want to hear the second part, I'm going to go over what's in it, but the way you get it would be on Rockfin, rokfin.com/InnerVerse, or my Patreon, patreon.com/InnerVerse, or there's a YouTube membership option that will let you get all of the second hour content and other things that are premium access only. And I've seen a lot of new subscribers come through lately. I really appreciate that as well. You guys know that's the best way to support the podcast is just with the $5 a month on Patreon. Tunings are going great. Tons of success stories happening. Staying very busy with that. Booked 5-6 weeks out. So if it's something you're curious about, get in now so that we can do it by July. Maybe the end of June might have a day or two open. And in part 2 of this phenomenal conversation with Katie, we talked a bit about her book, Flower Revolution. And apparently it's actually out of print. So we're going to have to talk to Katie again when it comes back into print. I'll get a copy of it and we'll make a whole thing of it because this is the beginning of a beautiful friendship. I can tell we have all the same worldview alignment necessary to have powerful collaborations. I love it. I'm so happy that we got to do this. And part 2 also had this very surprising thread about flowers and their relationship to our transitions into the unknown, which again is not something I expected to get into. The big surprise was when I asked her, is there something you don't usually talk about on podcasts? And we got into this entire huge weave about her going through tactical firearms training and the meditative aspect of that, fear management, the warrior and the healer as being two sides of the same coin, the boundaries, the powerful decisiveness, the effect on one's creativity, how all of that is improved by her tactical training experience. Really interesting. That's something worth the price of admission because I don't think you'll hear Katie talking about that anywhere else, unless it's sometime in the future and it hasn't happened yet. Then we talked about magical places of the world and their flowers and some powerful synchronicities in the quests that she's been on to find rare flowers. That was really fun. Then we discussed the exponential factor of homeopathy and how one flower can go forward generations of medicine, like literally generations of human beings worth of medicine, which is crazy to think about. We discussed the astrological aspects and doctrine of signatures when it comes to plants. She gave us a nice DIY tutorial of crafting flower essences, verbally anyway. And then we discussed a little bit more about creative ways to work with plant healers, and all around, just absolutely gorgeous second hour. You guys are kind of, I don't mean to sell it, but you're kind of missing out. And what's $5? It's $5 on Patreon. And something I don't tell people much about the Patreon, because I think that's the best way of the 3 options to get the premium content, because A, you have everything I've ever done going back to times in the past where I'm embarrassed that's me because I've come so far. But B, the Patreon has this thing where there's an RSS link through your membership that's easy to find, where you copy and paste that into your iTunes podcast player or whatever podcast app you like, and it will refresh your feed just like any other podcast without you having to go to Patreon and log in or use the Patreon app. Just so you know, it's like a one and done thing once you sign up, and you will access the expanded content just as easily as you did any other podcast through the RSS feed. So keep that in mind. Well, it's easy to set up. And once you do, you won't miss a beat. I put all the free stuff up there too. So it can just replace your RSS feed for the free feed with the plus feed, and away you go. It's great. And speaking of the iTunes podcast feed, one thing I don't often ask for is that, another support for the show method would be to go to the podcast app, search for InnerVerse, and then go leave a review. And I just got one from Stacia721, which was really lovely. And I wanted to share it. The InnerVerse is super insightful and makes many deep connections on various esoteric topics. Chance dabbles in a little bit of everything. He's warm, well-spoken, and has a great mind to broaden your awareness. I dig this podcast, and I've learned so much from Chance and all his guests. Special shout out to Slick. So that is a great review. You don't even have to go all the way to writing a paragraph. You could just leave 5 stars, but it does help us reach more people. I know I'm more into quality over quantity, but there is more and more people waking up to the true quality that life has to offer. And I want to be there for them. I especially want to connect them to our awesome guests like Katie today. Go to her website, try the fun plant quiz. There were plants that immediately jumped out at me. I'm really excited. I'm going to go ahead and go, but I love y'all. Thanks for being with us on another excellent episode. I think we'll see Katie again, probably real soon. And wherever you are, be well. Make sure you love life as much as you can and be good. All right. I'll catch you guys next time. Bye.
Check it out.